Hello, welcome to Explorer of Sleat, our Janos and Odyssey 439. The aim of this video is not to be a slick, polished presentation with whizzy graphics and special effects, rather a document to explain how the major functions of the boat actually work for the skipper and first mate. It's a virtual handover with the benefit of social distancing. Somewhere in the video there is a code word embedded, which you will be asked to repeat as evidence that you have watched the video from end to end. This code word is not present in the YouTube version of this video. You can start, stop, pause, rewind or begin again this video at any time, and once you've watched it to the end, please return the tablet to the office along with any questions you may have, and we'll be delighted to help you. Now let's go to the boat and have a look at the engine. Hello and welcome aboard Explorer of Sleat. Firstly, we're going to have a look at the engine, which is accessed by simply lifting up the bottom step, and the whole companionway raises up on gas struts. We will also be accessing the port aft cabin, which I'll show you in more detail in a moment. We're now in the port aft cabin, and by lifting this lid off the cupboard at the back of the engine, we can access the water strainer. The most important thing when starting the engine is to check that there is ample cooling water coming out of the exhaust. If there isn't, this is the main seawater strainer, and will pick up any large objects like a jellyfish or a plastic bag that could potentially block the water supply to the engine. It's just a hand-tight top. Unscrew it, lift the strainer basket out, tip whatever is blocking it into the bilge and put the top back on. And ordinarily, 99 times out of 100, this will cure the problem. We're now at the front of the engine, and if there is a water through the exhaust issue and clearing the main strainer hasn't solved the problem, then we need to have a look at the impeller in the water pump, which is here. Take the 4 screws out that hold the faceplate on, pull out the remains of the impeller, fit a new one from the engine spares kit, put the faceplate back on, and that always cures the problem. The only thing that can stop water coming out of the exhaust is a block strainer or damaged impeller. The large grey casing that says Yanmar on it hides fingers from the drive belt. If you want to feel the drive belt to see if it's correctly tensioned, you can reach over the top of it, but only whilst the engine is stopped. We'll now move into the starboard aft cabin to have a look at the other side of the engine. We're now in the starboard aft cabin, and just behind the door is a removable panel which will reveal the starboard side of the engine. If you wish to check the oil level, the dipstick is just here. Just like a car, it has a high mark and a low mark, and the oil level should be somewhere between the two. If you need to top the oil up, there is a bottle in the cockpit locker and it goes in here. Please add oil very slowly in small amounts, as these engines have a very small sump. So add a little, check the dipstick, and if necessary add a little more. It's much easier to add more than try and take some out. The batteries on Explorer of Sleat are all underneath the starboard aft bunk. The control switches for the batteries are on the forward end of the starboard aft bunk. They're clearly labelled. This is for the engine battery, this is for the domestic batteries. The horizontal position is on, the vertical position is off. The black one is to disconnect the negative side of the batteries, which you should never need to do. This switch here, labelled battery parallel and tie wrapped in position, should not normally need to be used. If the engine battery had an issue, was flat or damaged, then by cutting those tie wraps and turning that switch to the parallel position, you can use the domestic batteries to start the engine. There are also 2 circuit breakers here. This one is for the windlass and this one is for the electric winch. The 1 position, as they are shown now, is on, the 0 position is off. The idea with the one for the windlass is that if the anchor became snagged whilst you were recovering it, rather than damage the windlass, the power will just trip off. So you can turn it back on again and carry on. Also a good idea to turn it off if you're not using it, particularly if you have children on board. The one for the electric winch should normally be in the off position unless it's actually being used. I'll show you why from up on deck shortly. The chrome handle bottom right is the means to close the engine cooling water intake remotely. It's a requirement of the MCA code that you can do this, and by turning that handle 90 degrees clockwise it will shut the engine seacock, but ordinarily it should be in the open position. There is a clear plan of all the seacocks on the boat in the skipper's handbook. At handover, all will be in the open position, and they can all remain in the open position throughout your voyage. There is no need to close them. Any pipes that could potentially flood the boat are looped up to the deck head and back down again, so even if the boat was really well heeled over, there is no fear of water coming into the boat. So we have seen where the power comes from, and we're now at the navigator's table and can see where it goes to. This left hand panel here is for shore power. The light is on, so it's live. We've got 240 volts coming in. This is the immersion heater for hot water, battery charger, 240 volt sockets. These can all remain on. When you disconnect shore power, that whole panel will just go off, and when you plug back in at another marina, it will all come back on again. The next section here is 12 volts. They're all clearly labelled: cabin lights, cigarette lighter type socket for charging phones and iPads, etc. Fridge. The fridge draws a considerable amount of power, so please try and remember to turn it off when you're just under sail, but any time you're motoring or on shore power, turn it on. The fridge is really well insulated and will stay cold for a very long time. This switch doesn't do anything. Water pressure for pressure at the taps. Bilge pump, you can choose between automatic, and it's on a float switch, or on, you can force it to work. There's an obvious temptation to leave it in the automatic position, but during the night it will self-check itself every 4 minutes and wake everybody up every 4 minutes. Leave it off. There is a bilge water alarm next to the starboard wheel, which will sound if there is water in the bilge. Navigation instruments, deck floodlight, anchor light, steaming light to this side, nighttime sailing lights to this side. These are multi-position switches, and if you can see the gauge there, I press the top one, it tells me water tank 1 is full, press it again, water tank 2 is full, diesel tank is about 2/3 full. Press it once, it tells me that the engine battery is fully charged. Anything beyond this dotted line is fully charged. Press it again, domestic batteries also fully charged. Any alarms like low oil pressure, overheating of the engine will also show up in this panel, and pressing the bottom switch cancels the alarm. This small round controller controls the music system for the boat, and the instructions for it are in the skipper's handbook. At the right hand side is the ship's VHF radio. Press this button once to turn it on, and from then on, each time I press it, it selects a different function. So now it's volume, now it's squelch, now it's channel numbers. Or you can select channels with the up and down buttons here. If you have a really serious problem, lift this red flap and press the red distress button for 5 seconds or more, and it will transmit an automatic mayday with your exact location. There are 2 gas bottles in the gas locker in the cockpit, and to use the cooker it must be turned on at the bottle and at the secondary tap, which is in the cupboard beneath the cooker. To light it, choose the control for the burner that you wish, push it in, turn it clockwise, light the gas and hold it pressed in for about 10 seconds. then release. If you release the button too soon, the flame will not stay lit, in which case just light it again and wait a little longer. The gas alarm and solenoid for this boat is located just above the fridge. If the gas alarm sounds, it will automatically cut off the gas supply. The water tank manifold on this yacht is located behind the seat backs of the saloon table, starboard side midships. There are 3 taps and a line. The bottom one is not connected to anything, as this yacht has 2 tanks. The white plastic valves, the top one is in line with the pipe, so it is on. The middle one is across the line, so it is off. This is the normal configuration that you will have when you board the boat. So when the first tank in use is empty, close that tap, open the next one, and you've used half the water. You also have the gauges at the navigator's table. The controls for the heating system on the boat are on starboard midships, just above the cupboards. To light the system, press and hold the middle button for 5 seconds, and to turn it off, do the same again. Once it's lit, you can turn the temperature up or temperature down. It's a diesel-fired system, uses very little power and very little diesel. All our boats have ITT Jabsco twist and lock pumps, which are reliable and easy to use. When you've used the toilet, move this lever to the right hand position, and using the pump, about 10 or 15 strokes will empty the bowl. Move this switch to the left hand position, and using the same pump again, another 15 or 20 strokes will rinse the bowl out and clear the pipes of the boat. None of our boats have holding tanks, they are all straight to ocean, so please don't use them in a marina. The toilets will handle anything that you've eaten and small amounts of toilet paper without an issue. Putting wet wipes or any sanitary products down the toilet will block it instantly. Now might be a good time to make a cup of tea before heading up on deck. When you're ready, press pause and make your way to the bows. Explorer of Sleat is fitted with 50 metres of anchor chain, and it is marked every 10 metres. At 10 metres there is 1 mark, 20 there are 2, and so on. Yellow plastic markers you're looking for, all apart from the last set, which are red, just to give you heads up you're coming to the end of the chain. The bitter end is well secured to the boat by a length of rope, so you could cut it in an emergency. To operate the windlass, the engine must be running. There are 2 buttons on the hand controller, up and down. If there was a complete power failure, or if you wanted to lower the windlass manually, this handle fits in the crown nut, and undoing it half a turn will allow the chain to free fall. A good punch clockwise will stop it. To recover the anchor manually, the same handle fits in the outer ring of the crown nut and allows you to wind the chain up manually. In practice, it's much easier just to handball the chain up on deck and then sort it out. The forward water tank filler is on the starboard bow. At port midships you'll find a filler cap labelled waste. This boat is fitted with a holding tank, but it is not in commission. The toilets are straight to ocean and this cap should not be released. Underneath the spray hood at the port side is a bank of clutches which are all clearly labelled. The furthest away small one that you can't quite see is the port side for the main sheet traveller. Then working from far away to near, jib halyard, main halyard, reef 1, outhaul and vang. At the starboard side, working again from far away to nearest, is the starboard side main sheet traveller clutch, storm jib halyard, reef 2 and reef 3. All the reefs on this boat are slab reef, and the easiest way to put a reef in is to lower the main halyard, hand tighten the reef that you wish, then retension the main halyard. At the port side, the winch is an electric winch which is designed to make raising the mainsail much easier. The power needs to be turned on at the circuit breaker in the starboard aft cabin, and then you can choose from slow or fast. We strongly advocate that the power for this system is turned off in the starboard aft cabin when it is not in use. This is a very powerful winch, and it is also an obvious handhold for people moving about in the cockpit. The combination of the two doesn't bear thinking about. It is also extremely important that whilst this is being used, somebody keeps an eye on the mainsail. If the batten ends become tangled with the lazy jack strings, this winch will not stop. It will literally tear them out of the sail bag and spoil your holiday. The plotter on this yacht is the latest B&G plotter and works very much like an iPad. This is the default screen. Just turn the plotter on by pressing the button briefly bottom right, and you should be presented with this screen. There are various display options, and by pressing this button you can choose whichever one suits you best, but the default screen is probably the most useful one. This is us here, not moving at this moment in time. You can move the chart around just by fingertip, and you can zoom in and out by pinching. Let's say we wanted to go up the Sound of Mull. I want to go between Ladies Rock and the island. I tap the screen where I want to go, then zoom out to see if it passes the sensible check, and in the bottom left corner it tells me to steer 214 magnetic for 4.15 nautical miles, which would take me exactly to that spot. Nothing to press, no waypoints, just tap the screen where you want to go. It'll tell you how to get there. This is purely a backup to the paper charts and pilot books, and we strongly advocate their use as a primary means of navigation. To start the engine, firstly press in the red button to disengage the gearbox, and then choose about half to 3/4 power, either forward or astern, doesn't matter. So we now have half throttle but out of gear. And then moving to the control panel just to the left. I'll apologise now for the wobbly video, but I cannot get a tripod into this particular spot. Once you've selected half to 3/4 throttle, turn the electrics on by pressing the power button. Press and hold the glow plug button for 5 or 10 seconds. And to start the engine, it's the top button. Once the engine's started, please check that there is ample cooling water coming out of the exhaust. To stop the engine, press the stop button, then press and hold the power button to turn the electrics off. This boat is fitted with twin steering wheels and one rudder, which by necessity involves a number of gearboxes, turn blocks, chains and cables. If anything or even everything was completely broken, by removing this small disc between the two wheels with a winch handle, you can gain access to the top of the rudder stock. Inside the cockpit locker there is a large metal pole which fits straight onto the rudder stock, and she becomes a tiller steered boat. Located behind the starboard wheel is a multifunction display. At present it's showing boat position, lat and long, course over the ground and speed over the ground. By pressing the page button you can change the display. Now it's an electronic compass and showing rudder position. Now it's showing speed through the water and depth. By pressing this button it goes round in a continuous loop. This is wind information, showing where it's coming from and wind speed. And back to the start page. Just to the right of the multifunction display is the auto helm control. So if you get onto the heading that you desire, and press auto, it will take control and hold that course. Small adjustments plus and minus 1 degree, bigger adjustments plus and minus 10 degrees, and to stop it and return control to you, press standby. Just underneath the locker lid to your right, when you're sat at the right hand side of the wheel, there is a bilge water alarm. If this sounds and flashes, it's indicating that there is excess water in the bilge. Also under this locker lid is the aft water tank filler. My apologies for the noise in the background. There is a boat being sandblasted and they're likely to be doing it for 3 days, so I'm afraid we'll just have to tolerate that. The same multifunction display that we've just looked at in detail is repeated at the port side of the boat. The life raft on this yacht is located underneath the aft hatch, just forward of the sugar scoop and boarding ladder. The painter for the life raft is securely tied to the boat, and to use it, simply lower the boarding ladder to a horizontal position, open the aft hatch and throw the box into the water. As it drifts away from the boat, the painter will be pulled out of the box and the life raft will then inflate. You can then use the painter to pull it back to the boat, all climb in and cut yourselves free. When sat behind the port side wheel, there is a small locker to your left. Underneath it is the diesel filler and the shore power connection point. Before you leave the berth, please take with you all the dock lines that are not shackled to the pontoon. Please also take the shore power lead with you to allow you to access shore power at a different marina. Before you leave, when you return this tablet, please make sure that you have a look at the tidal stream plan for the marina, as this will help you have a safe and uneventful departure. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. We know we cannot cover every eventuality in a virtual handover, and we're at your disposal to assist you. When you return the boat, your last job is to fill the diesel tank. The diesel station is the yellow box located on leg D, D for diesel. This is all written down in the skipper's handbook. Then return the boat to any berth on leg F, Foxtrot, and make her secure, and then come up to the office to see us. We hope you have a wonderful voyage. We hope the weather is kind to you and that you enjoy Explorer of Sleat. Thank you for your time.